Hi everybody, this is Professor Lilly. Hope you're doing well. And I just want to talk about a few things as we're already into November. And so the course is over, half over. Um, I have a little cheat sheet here. So let me get on the right page. Okay. Um, a couple things. So at this point, okay, everyone just finished up the blog critiques. There will be a separate grade for that. So I haven't started grading yet, just because the due date was a couple days ago. Um, One thing about the critiques, please make them worthwhile by actually watching them, right? So you know students in your group took time to read your writing and give you some feedback. So so go to your page in the voice thread and see what people said about your writing and the suggestions that they gave. Okay. Um, at this point, I was just looking at some of the blogs. Early in October was the deadline for six to be done, and that was just to kind of make sure people didn't wait till last minute to do them all. Um, but a lot of you are kind of stuck at that six. So just remember, we're already by next week going to be halfway into November, right? So make sure you keep on posting, because remember, there's still you have to have 14 total. So don't forget about that. Um, Keep going. I know that back here at Loyola, a lot of the professors are kind of aware of the fact that in fall semesters, Thanksgiving is kind of ends up being I don't know if a lull is the right word, but we try to like get a certain amount of work before Thanksgiving, knowing that after it there's not really much time to finish up whatever else we have planned in the course. So that might not be the case for you all. I mean, I don't know what your plans are for Thanksgiving, or obviously where you're at. They have different holidays and whatnot, but what you really want to do is think about your schedule in terms of travel, things you have upcoming, and make sure that you're not having to post to write and post 5 or 6 articles in the last day before they're due. I'm going to talk about the final project in a second, but just to reiterate, that that's due. This is a Friday, December 7th, and then the deadline for all work is the 10th, which is a Monday. So that would be the day for all of your 14 plus blog posts to be on your blog by. So if I go to your blog and I see that one of your or more than one of your posts are posted on the 11th or 12th or whatever it is, then I won't consider that those in your grade. There's a couple things I want to kind of just reiterate or talk about in terms of and use some examples from some of your writing. Um, One thing, I think this is Isabel's blog, is make sure that all of your posts, regardless of kind of what you're trying to work with, maybe experiment with, or what in terms of the writing, but make sure you establish the topic and the mood in the first paragraph. So now this is a little bit different than other types of writing. Like in news writing, like strict news writing, the professor is going to say, well, you have to introduce the topic in the first sentence. Perhaps the same thing if you're talking about history essay or theology essay. With travel writing, it could be a little bit more establishing a mood first and then topic. So he or she has, I glanced at the clock on my wrist, 5:45 a.m., and then she kind of gets into how she was scattered and trying hard to get going for that day. But then here at the end, um, let's say, I guess this is technically the second or the third sentence. My class would be meeting in the lobby in roughly an hour to depart for the countryside of Ireland, and specifically the famous Cliffs of Moher. Um, So there we have it. We have the topic there. So I mean, you don't want that kind of to be third or fourth paragraph. That's too long. So what she's done here is appropriate, and then the kind of second topic, in a way, or co-topic, is the fact that we get that right here is that it's her birthday. Okay, and so as the reader, it's established. Well, I'm going to be reading about this side trip, but also about the fact that it's her birthday. So that's just important to establish. The same thing could be said for mood, like if the mood is kind of downcast or depressed, kind of just, or if the kind of what you're trying to do is to talk about a lot of description in there. So make in the whole article, make sure there's plenty of description in the beginning. Or if the mood's really supposed to be upbeat, make sure you establish that as well in the beginning. Another thing, let's see if we scroll down in this post. So most of you are doing a pretty good job for photos. In the past when I've taught this, I've had some struggles to get students to do it. I haven't noticed that as much. Make sure that it's nice to have captions. She doesn't have captions with these. Especially if they don't come in context. Now, it does seem like these photos come in pretty direct context of whatever she's talking about at the time in the paragraph, which is okay. It would be a little bit better to have captions for each one. And another thing to make sure, I think there's another student. So here we have with Caroline's. And most of your blog themes come with some way, like when you're inserting a photo, there's a little box there for adding the caption, and it will do it automatically. I thought like one of these I brought up. One thing that people aren't doing so much is adding links. So here, Sierra's talking about a playlist, and I assume these go to the actual songs themselves. And this is an appropriate where like it should be inside the sentence, not like pasting a whole URL in there. And mostly though, we're talking about, let's say if you're talking about going on a side trip to a part of Rome, and you maybe and you talk about a restaurant, then you can find the web URL, like the website for that restaurant. And when you have the restaurant's name, you can have that a link that goes there. Or places where maybe you did research for going on a trip, then you already know about those sites, so you can go ahead and include those links in there. So please start. I'm going to be looking for the second half articles in particular, all of them having links and all of them having good photos. Okay. Let me get back to my cheat sheet. So one thing that I mentioned before, which is an option, is to let's see if we can get this to come up. Is to do an Adobe Spark page as in lieu of an article. And I think there is a way to put in a code to make it completely embedded, but it's also okay if you just do this where you explain, okay, I did something a little bit different. And Adobe Spark is just kind of a way to kind of tell a whole story in one web page that you pull down. So you're gonna already so you could just go to Adobe Spark, create an account, and say, okay, now I'm gonna create a story, and you give it a title. You're gonna need lots of photos, so you need photos and video embeds to make it work. And you do have to do a fair amount of writing. So you want to write down what you want first, gather your photos, and then go ahead to Adobe Spark and start making it. And the story is kind of told as the reader scrolls down. So as I scroll down, I get more kind of zoom in on different photos. I get more text as well. And so the text should be kind of like in bite-sized chunks, designed to kind of comment on whatever we are seeing as the viewer. And so just a really nice way to tell a story that's very visual. So this is an option. We give you a little bit of an extra credit boost if you chose to do this as a way to tell a story. Okay, and again, you can just paste it in, like paste the URL in here, like Lily did here. And so that could be in place of any one of your stories. And if you want, you could do more than one story. So this also would be a good option for the final project. All right, so just because I mentioned the final project, I'll come back to some of these other things in a second. So remember that this is the one that's due on Friday, December 7th. And there's two options for this. You can either do an extra long blog article on your site, and that just goes into more detail. So if you're going to do that, just consider a story idea that you can that is going to what would require more words to do a good job. So maybe there's a lot of dialogue that you write down, or maybe it was like a more intense trip that you just have more details and things you want to talk about and go into more detail. So I mean, most of your articles, I'm thinking, are probably around 300 or 400 words. So I mean, this is about twice the length that I'm looking for here. And just make sure it's a topic that warrants it. That, you know, it's not like you're just like going on and on about something that doesn't warrant having that many words to describe what you were doing or what your experience was. And then the second option, and this is one that you would submit on a Dropbox in Moodle, is oh wait, no, this top one, I'm sorry. So this option B here is the more substantive blog article, and this one here is it can be more reflective. And it doesn't have to be in the travel writing type genre, and so that's why I'm saying you would submit it on Moodle, and you could have more personal details or just thoughts that maybe you would want in a public forum that your blog is. And this one I want you to kind of reflect on kind of a social justice or diversity issue. Like maybe you notice how race relations in the country that you're in are markedly different than they are in the United States, and you want to kind of take the kind of personal exercise of talking through or thinking through what those differences are and maybe how historical differences and demographic differences, whatnot, contribute to that. And maybe these are also things you're learning about in some of your courses, or you've talked about with friends that you've made who are from that country that you're living in. Or maybe you went on one particular trip and you saw something that really made you think about social justice issues or diversity issues, and you just want to kind of reflect on that and kind of like a journal type writing. So if you choose that option, then you submit that at the bottom. Let's see, where is it? Okay, so it'll be right here. So you just click in here and you submit a Word document. And so when I go to grade the final project, I'll probably come here first and I'll just see which students have done that. And then if your name all students' names are in here. Like if I click on no one submitted it yet. But if I went to view all submissions, then it would give me all the names. And if you haven't submitted one yet, it would just tell me, okay, I got to go to that student's blog to find their final project. Okay, so one thing for the final project, to just reiterate, is this is not one of your 14 plus normal blog posts, okay? So if you choose option B here, then you need to have 14 of your normal blog posts, and then there's one blog post that says final project, and you can give it a side title, a subtitle as well. But it's important for me to be able to say, oh, this is the final project, because that one post on your blog is worth way more points than the rest of the other ones. Okay, so it should be 14 plus 1. So if you choose option B, you should have at least 15. But I should be able to also recognize when I go to do the final project grading, oh, this is the final project. So you need to have that in the title Um, Last semester, I had, I think, one or two students, even though I mentioned it in the video, who kind of were thinking that the final project was one of the 14. So they did 13 of the normal ones and then the final project, and they got, because they were thinking it was 13 plus one. So that's not it. It has to be 14 plus, and then the final project. Okay, and also remember for the blog post, it's 14 plus. So if you do 15 or 16, I mean, that's even better of your normal articles. You can, I've said you have to do at least 14, so you can potentially get an A. I mean, get the highest number of points with 14, but it just makes it easier for me to give a higher grade for that if you do more than 14. Um, okay, so one other thing when I've been looking, and so a lot of the things have been getting a little bit better because when I did your grade for your setup, and you at that point you had at least one or two articles, um, then I commented on the writing of that first article or two, and for each one of you, and so if I saw a lot of grammar mistakes there, then I would have mentioned it. And so just be really careful. I've been reading more, and I can see this on some of them, and it seems like though in general you all are trying harder, but you got to edit. You got to edit. Um, you don't want the reader to be reading your really wonderful, thoughtful, descriptive writing, and then bam, they run into a run-on sentence or punctuation that doesn't make sense or just really sloppy grammar. Okay, so just be sure that you edit that. Um, One thing that isn't the focus of this course, but it is something that that you're expected to at least try to pay attention to is AP style. So generally, any kind of public writing like journalism, advertising type writing, public relations, adheres to AP style. And so there's this great page called, and you can Google this. I mean, there's millions of pages at Purdue. Um, there's this awesome website called OWL, and it has lots of different types of style guides, and one of them is for AP style. And so you can come down here and find their AP style guide. And just to make sure, if you're not quite sure, for example, like with AM, PM, it's lowercase a dot m dot. Um, and also think about things like uh, euro signs, for example. So you can do, and I have it here, do a shortcut to like, because a lot of you are using the euro, those of you who are in Europe, to make the official symbol that would appear on your website. Just think about little things like that when you're doing your writing, how you deal with numbers. For example, in AP style, if you're writing about, like, I went with 7 of my classmates, then the word 7 would be written out SEVEN. But anything that's 10 or over, that you use the numerals. So if you did 17, it would be 17. Anything having to do with currency, um, then it would be numerals as well as time. So certain things like that. Now, most of you at this point have had a class in either a journalism class or an advertising public relations class, so or a little bit familiar. So just, if you see something you're not sure, just go look it up, and just try to be aware of AP style. Most in general, I think all of you are doing pretty well and working hard at your writing. I did notice there's one other one I want to show you. So just think also about like ideas for how to format and work with the flow of your story. So here, Caroline, so there's like formats that are kind of like top 10 or top 5. So like type top 5 places to visit in the south side of London or something like that. And you're, as a typical travel writing technique. And here, she kind of breaks it into different areas. So like type of food, like places to go, and each one has a photo um, in several different places. So I mean, this is just like it's especially good if you're kind of like not frustrated, but you're kind of like not sure about how to write up a story, or if you're not really sure what to write about when you're going to a place. Like think about like a top five or top places to go or top places to eat or something like that, and just make sure you format it well so that the reader can understand what you're doing. Kind of like you know, Caroline did a fine job of that too, because like as the reader, I can instantly recognize you know, how she was organizing this story. Um, okay, so that's it. So again, just make sure you remind yourself of the deadlines that are, I mean, not, at this point, not really coming up until the beginning of December. Um, but I know for some of you, you know, you might even be getting ready to leave and come back to the States at that point. Others of you are going to a different country or staying longer. But just, you know, keep in mind that for this course, the beginning of December, you have a lot of stuff to wrap up. Okay, so if you have any questions, as usual, just email me. Um, and also, if you're struggling, another option is doing like a video chat with me as well. We can just arrange the time um, and do that. Okay, so again, email me. Hope everyone's doing well. I've been impressed with all the writing so far, but keep on working on it. It's even for great writers, it's never an easy process because you always have to edit and think and be reflective and then edit again. Okay, so take care.